Secularism in Turkey defines the relationship between religion and state in the country of Turkey. Secularism was first introduced with the 1928 amendment of the Constitution of 1924, which removed the provision declaring that the religion of the state is Islam, and with the later reforms of Turkey's first president Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, which set the administrative and political requirements to create a modern, democratic, secular state, aligned with Kemalism. 9 years after its introduction, laicite was explicitly stated in the second article of the then Turkish constitution on February 5, 1937. The current constitution of 1982 neither recognizes an official religion nor promotes any. This includes Islam, to which at least nominally more than 99% of its citizens subscribe. Turkey's laicite does not call for a strict separation of religion and the state, but describes the state's stance as one of active neutrality. Turkey's actions related with religion are carefully analyzed and evaluated through the Presidency of Religious Affairs. The duties of the Presidency of Religious Affairs are to execute the works concerning the beliefs, worship, and ethics of Islam, enlighten the public about their religion, and administer the sacred worshipping places. History. The history of secularism in Turkey extends to the Tanzimat reforms of Ottoman Empire. The second peak in secularism occurred during the Second Constitutional Era. The current form was achieved by Atatürk's reforms. Ottoman Empire. The establishing structure of the Ottoman Empire was an Islamic state in which the head of the Ottoman state was the Sultan. The social system was organized around millet. Millet structure allowed a great degree of religious, cultural and ethnic continuity to non-Muslim populations across the subdivisions of the Ottoman Empire, and at the same time it permitted their incorporation into the Ottoman administrative, economic and political system. The Ottoman appointed governor collected taxes and provided security, while the local religious or cultural matters were left to the regional communities to decide. On the other hand, the sultans were Muslims and the laws that bound them were based on the Sharia, the body of Islamic law, as well as various cultural customs. The Sultan, beginning in 1516, was also a caliph, the leader of all the Sunni Muslims in the world. By the turn of the 19th century, the Ottoman ruling elite recognized the need to restructure the legislative, military and judiciary systems to cope with their new political rivals in Europe. When the millet system started to lose its efficiency due to the rise of nationalism within its borders, the Ottoman Empire explored new ways of governing its territory composed of diverse populations. Sultan Selim III founded the first secular military schools by establishing the new military unit, Nizam-i-Sedad, as early as 1792. However, the last century of the Ottoman Empire had many far-reaching reforms. These reforms are peaked with the Tanzimat, which was the initial reform era of the Ottoman Empire. After the Tanzimat, rules, such as those relating to the equalized status of non-Muslim citizens, the establishment of a parliament, the abandonment of medieval punishments for apostasy, as well as the codification of the constitution of the empire and the rights of Ottoman subjects were established. The First World War brought about the fall of the Ottoman Empire and the subsequent partitioning of the Ottoman Empire by the victorious Allies. Therefore, the Republic of Turkey was actually a nation-state built as a result of an empire lost. Reforms of Republic. During the establishment of the Republic, there were two sections of the elite group at the helm of the discussions for the future. These were the Islamist reformists and Westerners. They shared a similar goal, the modernization of the new state. Many basic goals were common to both groups. The founder of the modern Turkish Republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's achievement was to amplify this common ground and put the country on a fast track of reforms, now known as Atatürk's reforms. Their first act was to give the Turkish nation the right to exercise popular sovereignty via representative democracy. Prior to declaring the new republic, the Turkish Grand National Assembly abolished the constitutional monarchy on November 1, 1922. The Turkish Grand National Assembly then moved to replace the extant Islamic law structure with the laws it had passed during the Turkish War of Independence. Beginning in 1919, the modernization of the law had already begun at the point that the project was undertaken in earnest. A milestone in this process was the passage of the Turkish Constitution of 1921. Upon the establishment of the Republic on October 29, 1923, the institution of the Caliphate remained, but the passage of a new constitution in 1924 effectively abolished this title held by the Ottoman Sultanate since 1517. Even as the new constitution eliminated the Caliphate, it, at the same time, declared Islam as the official religion of the Turkish Republic. The Caliphate's powers within Turkey were transferred to the National Assembly and the title has since been inactive. The Turkish Republic does in theory still retain the right to reinstate the Caliphate, should it ever elect to do so. Following quickly upon these developments, a number of social reforms were undertaken. Many of these reforms affected every aspect of Turkish life, moving to erase the legacy of dominance long held by religion and tradition. The unification of education, installation of a secular education system, and the closure of many religious orders took place on March 3, 1924. This extended to closure of religious convents and dervish lodges on November 30, 1925. These reforms also included the extension to women of voting rights in 1931 and the right to be elected to public office on December 5, 1934. The inclusion of reference to laicite into the Constitution was achieved by an amendment on February 5, 1937, a move regarded as the final act in the project of instituting complete separation between governmental and religious affairs in Turkey. Constitutional principles. The Constitution asserts that Turkey is a secular and democratic republic deriving its sovereignty from the people. The sovereignty rests with the Turkish nation, who delegates its exercise to an elected unicameral parliament, the Turkish Grand National Assembly. Moreover, Article 4 declares the immovability the founding principles of the republic defined in the first three articles. Secularism, social equality, equality before law, the republican form of government, the indivisibility of the republic and of the Turkish nation. The Constitution bans any proposals for the modification of these articles. Each of these concepts, which were distributed in the three articles of the Constitution, cannot be achieved without the other two concepts. The Constitution requires a central administration which would lose its meaning if the system is not based on laicite, social equality, and equality before law. Vice versa, if the republic differentiates itself based on social, religious differences, administration cannot be equal to the population when the administration is central. The system which tried to be established in the Constitution sets out to found a unitary nation-state based on the principles of secular democracy. Impact on society. The Turkish Constitution recognizes freedom of religion for individuals, whereas the religious communities are placed under the protection of state. But the Constitution explicitly states that they cannot become involved in the political process and no party can claim that it represents a form of religious belief. Nevertheless, religious sensibilities are generally represented through conservative parties. In recent history, two parties have been ordered to close in 1998 and Virtue Party in 2001 by the Constitutional Court for Islamist activities and attempts to redefine the secular nature of the republic. The first party to be closed for suspected anti-secularist activities was the Progressive Republican Party on June 3, 1925. The current governing party in Turkey, the Conservative Justice and Development Party, has often been accused of following an Islamist agenda. Issues relating to Turkey's secularism were discussed in the lead-up to the 2007 presidential elections, in which the ruling party chose a candidate with Islamic connections, Abdullah Gül, for the first time in its secular republic. While some in Turkey have expressed concern that the nomination could represent a move away from Turkey's secularist traditions, including particularly Turkey's priority on equality between the sexes, others have suggested that the Conservative Party has effectively promoted modernization while reaching out to more traditional and religious elements in Turkish society. On July 22, 2007, it was reported that the more religiously conservative ruling party won a larger-than-expected electoral victory in the parliamentary elections. Turkey's preservation and maintenance of its secular identity has been a profound issue and source of tension. Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has spoken out in favor of limited Islamism and against the active restrictions instituted by Ataturk on wearing the Islamic-style headscarves in government offices and schools. The Republic protests were a series of peaceful mass rallies that took place in Turkey in the spring of 2007 in support of the Kemalist ideals of state secularism. The constitutional rule that prohibits discrimination on religious grounds is taken very seriously. Turkey, as a secular country, prohibits by law the wearing of religious headgear and theopolitical symbolic garments for both genders in government buildings, schools, and universities, a law upheld by the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights as legitimate on November 10, 2005 in Leyla Sahan v. Turkey. The strict application of secularism in Turkey has been credited for enabling women to have access to greater opportunities, compared to countries with a greater influence of religion in public affairs, in matters of education, employment, wealth as well as political, social and cultural freedoms. Also paradoxical with the Turkish secularism is the fact that identity document cards of Turkish citizens include the specification of the card holder's religion. This declaration was perceived for some as representing a form of the state's surveillance over its citizens' religious choices. The mainstream Hanafite school of Sunni Islam is entirely organized by the state, through the Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı, which supervises all mosques, educates the imams who work in them, and approves all content for religious services and prayers. It appoints imams, who are classified as civil servants. This micromanagement of Sunni religious at times seems much more sectarian than secular, as it violates the principle of state neutrality in religious practice. Groups that have expressed dissatisfaction with this situation include a variety of extra-governmental Sunni, Hanafi groups, whose interpretation of Islam tends to be more activist, and the non-Sunni Alevi, whose members tend to resent supporting the Sunni establishment with their tax monies.